So this is what I'm up to today. More of the chicken. My glue dried. So it won't be exact. It's kind of like a butterfly from another dimension. It just spins in circles. um, but because I couldn't figure it out two-dimensionally up here, even though I got it pretty good I think, here. I couldn't find my square. I have a carpenter square, or I guess it's called a speed square. I'm a painter, so mine's made of plastic, sorry. I remember the first time someone showed me how to cut sheetrock with a speed square. My dad, he re-sheetrocked the house I grew up in, the house he still lives in, you know. It's 3 miles as the crow flies, 6 miles driving, about. And he re-sheetrocked the whole house, and he'd never showed me how. If you take your speed square and put it on the sheetrock, and then hold your knife to your mark, kind of lock it just with your hands and pull, you can trim off what you need to. Quick, snap it. And that was one of the first times I was, 18, 19. And that was one of the first times I thought to myself, like, I just learned something my dad doesn't know? Wow. I'm not super great with sheetrock. I'm certainly, I can mud like a painter muds, so it'll look good in the end, but I ain't like, but yeah, so I was looking for my speed square because I was like, what do I have that'll work? And eventually I came up with a file folder, and I bent it just so, like a teardrop. And that gives me a nice square. I cut off part of it up top, but at the bottom it gives me a nice square. And I checked it against my Corona beer can to make sure it was straight. I wasn't sure if other things that might be straight would be, but I knew this would be straight. One shot, 2 shots. Yeah, so now what I can do is, as I turn this, because I have it on a marked out paper, that's separated into 48, so that's ta over 48, ta as 2 pi, ta as 2 pi, 2 pi, a circle, 2 pi over 48, ta over 48. So as I turn this once, these circles that are marked into 24, I do 2, because the important thing is splitting the bisector between this bottom one that can't curl. So you're really going 1, but you're going 2, taking into account for the bisector as this turns. And the whole point of doing it this way is so that from this angle, as it turns that all these triangles look the same as a collapsed cross section. Anyway. And I have these little tiny clothespins so I can hold my thing in the right place. I can hold each side to the right place. And then when I spin it at the correct angle, I can then take this and I can put it right up to this point, which will drop it straight down. And that will give me my collapsed cross section of where those points are going. But then also I can mark it on here, whoops, for however high that is. I can mark it on this. So then later on, I can make poles with things on them. And what's another interesting thing about this shape, which is the simplest shape in the world, it's almost simpler than the number 1, because to me the number 1 would be a tetrahedron. It might even just be the number 0. But so this is below the simplest object in the world, but it's the simplest conceivable object really besides a circle. Both are actually simpler than a line, practically speaking. Okay, the circle's simpler than the line. Triangulation is simpler than a line, but only as triangulated vesica piscis. Whereas an actual triangle, well, it takes both into account. But still. And that's how complicated trying to get to the bottom of the simplest object in the world is. Now, of course, I made my 120-degree triangles and my splits and so on, but still, a triangle, its center and extremities connected, go. See you in fucking 24,000 years. But yeah, I really like that. I like it. It's very simple. And it's funny how I feel the need to document what, to like real engineers, or even amateur engineers, or like anybody who's ever done anything would be like, yeah. But to me, it's like this great revelation. And I like, for some reason, I like doing everything with paper. Well, because I'm lazy, I don't feel like getting a bunch of tools, I don't have a ton of space. It's not the greatest place in the world to be like, you know, I can't make a wood shop in my house, I'm sorry. Not yet, maybe someday, you know, who knows, but not today. So I guess I'm not a carpenter. What would that make me? A paper macher. I'm a painter. Oh, I don't do wallpaper. I've done wallpaper, I don't like it. And I'm even worse with wallpaper. Well, I shouldn't say worse. I'm good at mudding, but not profitable. I'm good for a painter mudder. I can make shit smooth as shit, but it ain't gonna be fucking Ginsu knives, Kodo dragon, steakhouse shit. You know? It's gonna be. Let me go think about it over a cigarette. But it'll look good in the end, you know. Anyway, yeah. Boing. Uh-oh. Wait, how would I have it? So I'm pretty excited right at this exact moment about this project. Oh yeah, the great thing about this is that it describes a globe. Now, if a globe's height were 1, it shouldn't be, but if a globe's height were 1, well, maybe it should be, I don't know, but then this plane would exist at a quarter. So as this shape moves, it describes height-wise, 3/4 of a globe. The bottom quarter being beneath the table, height-wise. But what's still super cool about it is that as these shapes trace down, now that I have their heights, and I'll have their drop-down coordinates, so I had to resort to three-dimensional geometry, and I had to resort to Pythagoreanism. Why do I say resort? It's a squared plus b squared. It's not necessarily the most powerful thing in what we call numbers or patterns or pater, but it's the simplest to remember. It's just rock solid. So when all else fails, we can resort to that and come up with something. With real I shouldn't even say real. That's the thing too, we say real numbers, integers. Well, a real number is completely unreal. Kinda. What we call real numbers, like the continuum's real, what do we mean by real? This is why I don't know shit about math, is because I can't deal with 0 and 1. You know, 1753's got to wait. you know, 3.5's blowing my mind right now. Give me a few minutes. What I really wanted to talk about today, I did want to talk about this. This is the simplest shape I've ever made. It only took me 1 day to make it. Well, okay, maybe like a day and a half, but to me that's like a day. So it took me 1 day to make it, and it's one of the most awesome things I've ever made in my entire life. These little fins, they're not even gears, they're gear-ish. They're not even precise, but I love them. And I hope you'll forgive me for projecting my wants and hopes for the world. I don't interact with people I love, but I interact with this thing. And I guess what I could say about what I do, or what my work is, is that to a large degree, it's escape. And it's a projection of all my wants and hopes and loves and fears, all my regrets and all my pride, like everything that's ever happened to me with people, especially with other people, because this is an object. Kind of like if you're a person in my life, you're this exterior object. I'm I'm loving, I'm hating, I'm interacting with, I'm disregarding, I'm putting on a pedestal, I'm putting underground. And it doesn't matter at what capacity you are in my life. You're another thing that I interact with. And unfortunately, the majority of my 44-year-old life is objectification. You know, you're my waitress, you bring me food. So bring me food and stick to that. You're my girlfriend, you tell me I'm great, and then we play with each other's private parts. Let's stick to that. You're my boss, you give me directives, preferably in a friendly way, and my paycheck. Let's stick to that. Actually, my boss is really awesome, and when I think of him as a boss, when I think of him as the boss, I don't see him as a human being or as who he is or as like my friend. And he's got a really awesome sense of humor, and he's one of the smartest people I know, and he owns a painting company, you know, that's super duper busy, does a lot of really great work. No advertising, all word of mouth. And you'd have to know him. But when I see him as the boss, then I'm, you know, then I get all mousy and I'm like, not the person that he likes or wants to be around or appreciates or pays. Even at times when I probably don't deserve it. Not sure where I was going with that. I wish I did, because I think I had a good point. Maybe it'll come back to me. Things do sometimes. About 7 times out of 10 they don't. But about 3 out of 10 they do, and that's pretty good. What I want. How much time I got? I've only been talking for 18 minutes. Awesome. So I got tons of time. I can basically, the reason why I make hour videos for the most part is because, well, I do get a little bit winded after about an hour. Sometimes I lose my train of thought, but that's about what I have for memory, because I got about 16 hours, maybe more, probably more, saved on my phone, because, well, more than half of it I've already compressed. And, yeah, so I figure I have about 15, 16 hours worth of unreleased footage on my phone that mostly dates over the last year, but some goes back a couple few years. And it's all crap when I'm like desperately attached to it, waiting for the right moment to use it. What was the point of that story? Chicken. the chicken. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Um, um, yeah, I was going to talk about why we can't handle the truth, right? Because it's at the base level, the biggest reason, right? Because there's those who we learned about who are in control. They're not in control. Some or most of them may think they're in control. That's not to say that the enemy's not real. The enemy is real. But the ones at the true top, you could say they're running this whole gig, the way we say about the bad dudes, right? Now, what got me into looking for the good dudes? Now, if you think it was hard for you to get to the story of the bad dudes, to get to the story of the good dudes, it's brutal getting to that story. Brutal. So, about all this high-minded hippy-dippy, man, which is great. Love all of it. But, and I'm only saying this, I'm not trying to be a dick like I know it all. I know I know I'm taking on that attitude. Trust me, I don't. I guess it's just an expression of how desperately I want to convince you. See, this is how that attitude that I just had makes it sound. That attitude that I just had, the way it makes it sound, is like, you gotta get rough and tough, you gotta dig into this, you gotta do this thing, or blah blah blah. And like, I know. But that's not it. If there's any mild intensity to like the way I'm speaking, it's because the truth is, it's so important that, like, basically, besides people who are completely bananas, completely, at the end, besides that, the prophets, the magi's, the teachers, killing themselves. Like, the people who kill themselves are top ranked casualties of the enemy. People who commit suicide are basically officers of God's army who the enemy has targeted and destroyed. And I think that's the best way and the only way of thinking about it. Now, let's think about like Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And before Alcoholics Anonymous, I think the most prevalent what was that? What was that called? What was it called? That large movement that wiped out booze for a while in the U.S. What was that called? I can't remember what that movement was called. But anyway, before Alcoholics Anonymous, I think it was the Washington Society, which was better than the Abstainers, or I forget what the heck they were called. But there was that, around Lincoln's time, there were all those folks who were like morally desperately against drinking, and they were completely ineffective. Lincoln was against those dudes mostly ideologically, I'm guessing not only over that issue, but because of the larger ideological context in which they operated, but that he was a supporter of, I think it was called the Washington Society, which was basically like almost a pre-AA, where like drunks got together who didn't want to drink, who didn't, but they wanted to like share with each other, tell each other their stories, and like, they recognized it within themselves and so on. And in some sense, I guess that's like a little bit of what I'm trying to do. Not that I'm suicidal on a daily basis, but I think, see, that's the thing too. Like even saying that, like, is probably enough. There would be enough there. Well, certainly with everything I've said, right? There'd be enough there where someone could definitely, easily cherry pick, and maybe not even cherry pick. Maybe mow over with a tractor and extract the seed that way. But there's enough of what I've said where, oh, something's, wait, what did you say? Something's wrong. We got to put you in a room, right? But existential crisis is super existential, ultra existential, hyper existential. Like, existence is a fucking trip. You can never get over the fact that you are, right? I can never get over the fact that I am. It's just completely, every day it's right there. It's pretty much the first thing in my face. I don't know where I was going with that, but if you understand the shape, so the story spoken is the shape my finger makes in the liquid, right? But it's a big container, and if I stir my finger long enough, I don't have to move it very far before you see which way the water's flowing, and you see the shape, the size, the scope of the container, right? So I guess if you followed that far along the way, I don't need to say anything else. About that subject, I got more to say. I never know when the nows collapse, where they'll collapse to. All day I was thinking it would be one thing, and then here I am. When I pressed record, I still haven't got to what I really wanted to talk about. But something came to the surface, because something's always coming to the surface. I can't record the beauty of the sparkling river before me. I watch the sparkling river for 15 minutes, and then I pull out my camera. I can't recapture what happened before. Sometimes it kind of resembles what came before, and other times, a quick wind, a change in temperature, an updraft. The current changes. Everything changes sometimes in a moment. I guess always in a moment, but it just depends on like the duration of the moment, you know? The chicken. It's my emoji. Yeah, what I was going to talk about. I'm psyched because I feel like I've said a lot. Of course, I've had a few pops. So, anyway, This is actually really, 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 really serious. And the. Alright, I'm just going to get right to it. I have to remind myself that I have a specific job. I have to remind myself of the time scale that I'm operating on, because I'm tempted I have several balls in the air, so to speak. I'm juggling several balls, and they're all in the air at the moment. And I'm very tempted, often, daily, to take one of these balls, any which one, grab it, and run with it. Right off. Forgetting all the other ones and just taking this thing, maybe getting a little coin, or whatever. A little recognition, of a little love. Because the way I'm doing it right now, there's a story to me. And if my content were the only channel in the world, eventually someone would kind of get it. But that's not the case. So I'm tempted, because anything that I'm a little bit passionate about or quite a bit passionate about, I'm passionate about all the way down, and they're all connected. So I'm just like, I just gotta get this out, you know? And so much of that has to do with impatience. And so much of that has to do with, like, because people always deride on talking about, like, Saturn or time and all that. But also the patience of time. That if you see eternally, like, sometimes, yeah, you gotta drive because something has to be done right now. You gotta push, you gotta put everything in it, you gotta sacrifice every piece of yourself to get this one piece of the puzzle placed definitively in space and time. Sometimes that's what time requires, and it's diminishing physically, but it can be very empowering spiritually. And the opposite is also true from eternity's eyes. When we have something inside of us, an obsession, an inspiration that is so, this manic, thunderous lightning burst that we just have to get out. We don't see it expressed in the world. You know? But when you get these, like, brainstorms, like, you know, it's like a super, how fast can you download a book? How fast can you read it? How fast can you download a podcast? How long does it take to listen to it? Right? These days, it's a lot better than it used to be. It used to take 3 hours to, download 5 minutes, and now it's even better than the other way around, a lot or most of the time. But, like, when you get a crazy brainstorm, that might mean, like, you could have a crazy brainstorm one day, and that might be, like, it's all going, everything. That could be 3 years of work, that could be 10 years of work, and that one day, that one brainstorm you had could take 10 years to unpack in the world, even if you know it all the time, every day. That brings me to my next subject, is that there are those. That's what the whole thing with, like, secret societies and the secrets of the ages and disciples, apostles, magi's, imams, never mind the rest of it, That's what all of that's about. And like the first, when we think of like secret societies, a lot of times, and certainly for myself over the years, you think of like this group, this group, this group, but way back, it was just shamanism, so to speak, and more. But like the basic, and not, on both sides of the stray. And the fundamental thing to remember about that is it's not kept a secret primarily. Well, I shouldn't say this. On moral grounds, these secrets are not kept mostly secret to 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 privilege a certain few. Now, there are those who engage in that in such a way and they believe it's a delusion. They're still very high up. But the way they get there, and they think that they're going higher and higher and higher to the top of the pyramid, but they don't realize there's this other intersecting, and it's not even a pyramid, but it's triangular-ish, and there's another quote-unquote invisible intersecting one, invisible to the explicit power structure. There's the invisible one, so then there's twin pinnacles, and then there's the pinnacle above that that understands the established, explicit, understands the implicit, and marries them at the top, so to speak. Some people call that God. Can't remember where I was going with that either. Alright, maybe we'll just keep looping around. Looping around. Alright, 37. Now I gotta pick it up a little bit. What I wanted to talk about is, yeah, I've alluded to it before, and sometimes I speak really about it, but we have to be prepared to know the truth. And I dip my toes into esoteric things, right? And I don't know if I've yet demonstrated. I don't know yet if I have bared witness to what I've witnessed, right? That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. If I didn't make these shit drinking beer, smoking butt videos, I might never make anything. And then I wouldn't be bearing witness, I've said it before too, like the 12-step program, the first rule, well, they talk about what the 12 rules are, but there's like the 0th rule is you can't drink. You can't do drugs no more. Which makes sense for everybody else who's there. But maybe there needs to be like a separate organization for like, hey, I want to serve the most highest principle. I'm a complete fucking mess. I imbibe, I ingest, I do what I do. I chase skirt, I do this, I do that. Because I'm just trying not to fucking off myself. I'm trying to give this thing I've been given what it thinks it wants. To get my mind off my mind for a minute. So I can, like, go do my thing. And go to bed. But anyway, yeah, telepathy, right? So many times, right? Iamblichus criticizes Porphyry. I remarked on it before, yet I've been Porphyry. Because I beat around the bush when I shouldn't. I beat around the bush when it's my job on my time scale to say what I'm supposed to say. And it's very, very hard for me. And it really is a few simple rules. I spend too much time talking about what has already been said. And the type of people I'm talking to, for the most part, already know what I'm talking about. So I should just get to the point. And too often lately I forget that we're standing for like the most subjugated group of human beings in the world. But we can only imagine that. Yet someone represents it. An incredibly hairy, dark-skinned, female, cripple, dwarf, female-leaning hermaphrodite, crippled dwarf, retard, maybe not even retarded, maybe super smart. But we'd still like, right? It would be shocking. But so much of what's shocking is that, okay, we recognize in ourselves that we're curious, but we don't allow, in society, we don't allow ourselves to be curious of difference. And we're not touchy-feely. Imagine, because I think it's pretty safe to say that like Italians, certain, right? Like, yeah, I'm gonna get this wrong. Certainly within the media that has been presented to me in my life. So let's just look at that. Let's just look at the fake media of Italian people. So I guess I'm just speaking to that. Like, certain things go, certain things don't. Period. Right? There's a spectrum. You're in it or you ain't. Right? And that goes for anyone and everywhere. So I don't know why I had to pick on Italian people for that one. We could say it about painters. Man, you can say whatever you want about me. If you said all the bad shit, you'd be, at least 85% right. At least. So. Man, I keep going on these tangents. I'm distracted. What I'm trying to say is that telepathy is real. Not to just go off on some philosophical rant and be like, well, if telepathy's real, then this and then this and then this, and it just gets really thick. But the real thing is, and I don't have it. I don't have telepathy. There are those watching who are on the fence about telepathy, or who straight out don't believe it. If you straight out don't believe it, you should, well, I don't know what you should do actually. If you're on the fence, please take some time. Please. And just think about what it would mean if it were real. If there were such a thing as telepathy. Like, flat out, people know everything you're thinking. And prophecy. And telepathy and prophecy at the same time, at a higher resolution, dynamically, in the universe, in human beings around us. Think about that. It means everything you've ever done and everything that you've ever thought and things that you've not yet done or thought yet are known not just by God, not just by something, not just by the amorphous every nothing, but by actual people around you, here and there. People not even around you, here and there. Who can peer straight through your fucking soul and who are good. I'm just going to say that's the truth. I always try to make these arguments and I forget, like, and it's good too. It's good to try to, like, rationally present things and present the clues that have been left through time. But I don't need clues for what I know. And it's my job to bear my particular cross, you know. We are all characters in one story, period. Except we're not characters. Well, we are. We're real. So, yeah, I was going to say a lot more today about that, but I think that's actually a good place to leave it, is because I have to remind myself of how hard it's been to come to this. That whatever that thing, that magic and discipleship and true teachership, whatever that is, it's real, it's very, very old, and very, very real. And the knowledge is real, and the folk are real. I mean, they're real, man. Here. And that's very hard to wrap our minds around. It's been very hard for me to wrap my mind around. And even now, knowing that it's true, I mean, I know it's true. Not like, oh, I know it's true. No, I mean, I know it's true. And even now, even in that way, it is so hard. But it must come commonplace for everybody in the future. And I have to remind myself that I'm a little bit of an outlier, you know. As it turns out, I might be the outlieriest outlier, but I'm working for this soul. I'm working for this soul, you know, and I'm working for this soul. And that's it. And whoever this soul is, no one ever watches. I can speak as though someone were watching anyway, because I won't embarrass anybody besides myself, who's already embarrassed. If I say someone's watching, you never watches. But if I say all y'all watching, well, if even only one person ever watches, then I just feel funny talking about stuff, because I can't ever imagine anybody wanting to listen to what I had to say. But I also recognize the fact that, okay, people are saying way better shit than I'm saying, but nobody's saying what I'm thinking, not even me. And that's where I'm trying to get to the point where I can just say it like I think it. But I'm so guarded and it's beyond subconscious. It's just like it's in the muscle. It's in everything. It's veined throughout my thought form, and it just has me stagnated. I can't just say. But I did at least say, it took me 50 minutes, but I did at least say, just a matter of factly, because it is a matter of fact. Sometimes the truth has a certain ring to it. There are hardcore motherfucking telepath prophets who know everything you've ever done, what you think. They look at you the way you might think that God looks at you if you've ever believed in a concept of God and given it much thought at all, or considerable thought. Those folk, or at least they look like folk, round, but those people are here. Whether or not they're people the way I think of me being the people, I don't know. But I don't even know what this people is. I know a little bit kind of how I look, and I know a little bit kind of how I think, and I know a little bit kind of how I do. But yeah, I guess that's just a good moral. That just lays it out nice and simple, straight. That's a good place to start. Telepaths are real. Prophets are real. What we have called archangels in the past are real. And thinking specifically right at this moment of Saint Raphael and the story of him in Enoch and the story of him in, there's some other apocryphal book. I can't remember. I think it starts with a T. Might be like 5 letters long. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. Thereabouts. Yeah. Or Archangel Raphael, yeah. Yeah. I've watched a bazillion YouTube videos on every conspiracy you could imagine. And not just conspiracy, history, intellectuals, religious leaders, scientists, all that, right? I've watched a bazillion. And I'm just going to say it flat, straight. I'm sorry I'm being like that. I just want to bear witness, that's all. To an end. Peace, man. The Omega Point, where all souls are gathered, and where as many as possible, if not all, remember, there are infinite souls, and at each Omega Point, that infinity collapses to a number. Omega points are convergent. That's a good way of saying it. Eternity is divergent. The alpha and the omega in eternity are convergent. Period. Simple as that. Telepaths are real. I think I just lost what I was trying to get to. I think it was going to be controversial. I've said enough. I hope you're having a good day. And if you're not, hold on. teacher of mine once said, so simply, I think you'll be able to remember this one. And if you look back upon your own life now, even as you rage, this too shall pass. We need you. Do it for us. Sometimes saying that matters. Do it for us because we need you. And we're with you. Do what? Hold on. May I have the strength to take my own advice? It's not just a ploy, you know? And I deeply pray. I deeply pray you're stronger than me. You know? I'm broken every which way, you know? But I have a certain propensity and certain strength, and it's pretty much the only thing I have. It's a narrow strand, you know? But because of that, it's kind of like that's the only reason I'm still here. Because it's still relevant. And I don't wish to hold on to my relevancy as it is, but and I shouldn't even say relevant because that sounds too much like popular, but like relevant to the real fucking situation, which is the big ass spiritual war. That is yet to be won, and it has to be won, and it has to be taken seriously. And we're not on the other side of anything. Well, we are, but in another sense, we're not. You know, we're a third away across the ocean. We got some fucking work to do. You know, that's where we're at. Anyway, so, but yeah. Thanks for caring.